We continue with our movie reviews with The Walk, directed by Robert Zemeckis and starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. For those of you who don't know the history of the World Trade Center prior to that fateful day in September 2001, there was one particularly amazing event that happened at the time of its completion. Back in 1974, a young, talkative, amateur French wirewalker named Philippe Petit saw the construction of the towers and had this dream of putting a wire in between the towers and walking on it. And he would spend the first several years of his adult life achieving this dream. And he was actually able to achieve it in 1974 and actually brought the World Trade Center towers into worldwide prominence. This film is a dramatization of that dream. Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays Philippe Petit as he grows from his discovery of the Twin Towers one fateful day when he decides to go into the dentist and he sees the picture of them in a magazine. And so he continues becoming better at being a wire walker under the tutelage of an expert circus performer played by Ben Kingsley in a nice little role. Along the way, he gains his accomplices, encounters a bit of a romantic side quest, until finally he can actually gather all his assets together, come to New York, and fulfill what he called his coup under the cover of darkness. Okay, guys, back in 2008, the documentary by James March known as Man on Wire was released, and this was as you can tell, a sort of like half documentary, half dramatization of the 1974 coup by Philippe Petit. And while this film, admiringly, there is no footage of Philippe Petit walking the wire between the towers. There's only pictures of him doing so. This film actually has the dramatization of Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Philippe Petit walking in between the towers. I wouldn't say it's better than the documentary, but it does a fairly good job. Although, this is a film that definitely gets better. When you start the film, you begin to notice that Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Philippe Petit has these moments in between, during scenes where he cuts in as an image of him standing on the Statue of Liberty, talking to the audience. It's not just a basic voiceover, it's straight up breaking the fourth wall. And it does become old after a while. The first 2/3 of the film, which is basically him like building up on his dream, becoming a better wire walker, having a romance, having his fights with the circus performer played by Ben Kingsley, it's pretty standard stuff. And I would have come out of this film being like, it's okay, it's not the most memorable thing, but it's okay if the film was just that. But then the coup happens, and it straight up becomes a heist film in a sense. Like, these guys had to have the Philippe Petit and his crew of both French and American accomplices had to come to the World Trade Center with the right credentials, with all of the tools with them. That includes the wire, that includes all of the equipment to secure it, because there's one thing that would have been tragic. If Philippe Petit fell off of that wire, he would not live to be the artistic legend that he is today. He's still alive, by the way. When the film finally goes to the point where Philippe Petit steps onto the wire, the film suddenly becomes magic. Like, you feel like you're on that wire with him as he walks between the Twin Towers. You love those moments when the police finally go on the roof and they're observing Philippe Petit without any power to save him or tell him to come off, because it's their lives or his. They can't tell him to come off that wire unless he volunteers to do so. And I have to tell you, like, looking at that sequence, it was gorgeous. I have to admit, though, like, the more artificial parts, like, they had to rebuild the Twin Towers for this film, and it does sometimes look too artificial. It does sometimes look like they're on a green screen set, but you can't help but feel enveloped in Philippe Petit's dream. You buy that he's walking in between the towers, and that single-handedly brings my rating up. Guys, The Walk may not be the Oscar contender that it was originally set up to be, but it's still a pretty impressive film, mostly anchored by the walking sequence. The rest of the film is mostly standard heist stuff with, sort of supplemented by the dream of Philippe Petit walking in between the towers. But him walking the towers, that brings my rating to 4 stars out of 5, or 8 out of 10. Like I said, not the Oscar contender that many people were hoping it would be, but it's still a really fantastic film. Definitely see this film, and most definitely see the 2008 Oscar-winning documentary Man on a Wire. I have to say, it is even better than this film, and it's a documentary, which is interesting. So definitely see The Walk. Have you seen any good films lately? Old, new, in theaters, at home?
Be sure to let us know in the comment section below.
Be sure to tune in next week when we review 4 films: Goosebumps, Woodlawn, Crimson Peak, and Bridge of Spies.
Also, next week I will be continuing my Star Wars saga reviews with Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Finally, be sure to take the time and check out our